In a Bell Systems central office in 1952, a telephone operator pushed a plug into a flashing jack and heard a customer mumble two words, "Help me." Then the line went silent. She did not know whether the caller had fainted, been attacked, or simply dropped the receiver. She could not see the room at the other end. She had only an open circuit, a row of lamps, and the strict procedure governing what she must do next. The rule was simple: do not abandon the line. What followed showed why telephone operating was never merely a matter of saying, "Number, please." It was a job built on speed, restraint, memory, and the ability to recognize danger from almost nothing. To understand that moment, step into a representative American central office in the early 1950s. You arrive before your tour begins because the switchboard cannot wait for you. Telephone traffic rises and falls by the clock. Business districts are busiest through the day. Residential exchanges swell in the morning and evening. Storms, holidays, military leave, and local emergencies can overturn the schedule without warning. There is no theatrical uniform. In many offices, the practical uniform is neat business dress and the headset that will remain pressed against one ear for most of the shift. You enter an operating room lined with long switchboards. Lamps sit above rows of jacks. Paired cords hang from the key shelf below. Around you, dozens of women work close together, their hands moving while their voices remain controlled. Around mid-century, the number of telephone company operators stood near 342,000 in the United States. Private switchboards in hotels, offices, hospitals, factories, and apartment buildings added many more workers. The central office has its own hierarchy. A chief operator is responsible for the room. Assistant chiefs cover evenings, nights, Sundays, and holidays. Service assistants sit or stand behind the operators, training newcomers and stepping in when a call becomes difficult. In some offices, separate service observers sample calls to judge the quality of the work. A new operator does not begin with the public. She practices on training equipment, rehearsing simulated calls until the motions and phrases become habitual. Then she handles real customers under supervision. Only after that does she take a position at the live board. A lamp flashes. The shift begins. By the 1950s, the telephone network was part human and part machine. Many city customers could dial local numbers themselves. In smaller communities, manual exchanges still connected local calls. Long-distance, collect, person-to-person, information, and problem calls commonly required an operator. When a signal appears, you insert the front plug of a cord pair into the answering jack and move a key to speak. The customer gives a destination, perhaps an exchange name and number, perhaps a city hundreds of miles away. Your first task is not plugging, it is hearing. Telephone lines can hiss. Callers speak quickly. Exchange names sound alike. A wrong digit can send the call to another household, waste an expensive trunk circuit, or create a billing dispute. So you repeat the essential information and correct uncertainty before building the connection. For a long-distance call, the route may not run directly from the caller's city to the destination. You consult the route information at the position or rely on routes learned through repetition. Then the rear plug goes into an available outgoing trunk. If another operator must carry the call onward, you send a ring-forward signal. A lamp appears on her board. She answers with the name of her city. You pass the destination in a compressed professional exchange. City, exchange, number. She takes the call to the next trunk or to the final local line. Once the called telephone rings, the operators withdraw from the conversation unless the service requires them to remain. On a station-to-station call, the connection matters. On a person-to-person call, the identity of the person answering matters too. A collect call requires acceptance of the charge. A busy circuit may require a delayed attempt or a callback. This is why experienced operators developed what the industry called overlapping. One call could be ringing while another was being recorded and a third signal was waiting. The operator's hands, ears, and memory worked on different stages of several connections at once. The public heard a calm voice. The switchboard saw controlled congestion. The first hidden rule was that the caller should never hear the strain. Courtesy was not an optional personality trait. It was part of the service being sold. An impatient customer could blame the operator for a busy line, a wrong number, a distant party who was not home, or equipment she did not control. She was still expected to answer evenly and keep the exchange moving. The company called the goal accurate, fast, courteous service. Those words pulled against one another. Speed without accuracy created errors. Accuracy without speed left lamps burning and callers waiting. Courtesy took time, yet discourtesy could produce complaints. So the experienced operator learned to be brief without sounding abrupt. The next rule governed the number itself. Never guess. If a syllable was unclear, ask. If a number seemed doubtful, repeat it. A confident wrong connection was worse than a momentary delay because it consumed equipment, annoyed two customers, and left the operator responsible for repairing the mistake. Then came the rule customers could not see. A telephone operator had access to private voices, but access was not permission. Professional practice required her to remain only as long as the service demanded. To receive instructions, confirm an answer, test whether a circuit was functioning, or complete a special call. The cord connected homes, hospitals, businesses, police stations, and military bases. Restraint was as important as dexterity. Yet the operator herself had little privacy at work. Service assistants watched from behind the board. Chief operators made personal observations. Service observers could sample calls. Customer letters and complaints became another measure of performance. An operator might not know when a routine call was also an examination of her speed, phrasing, or judgment. Weak handling could bring review and further training. The quality record mattered for better assignments and advancement. The board demanded self-control because the worker's voice was both her tool and part of her record. The lost shift follows jobs in which ordinary movements carried hidden responsibility. Subscribe if you want more working lives reconstructed from the rules people were expected to follow. The hardest restrictions extended beyond the cord board. Schedules followed traffic, not family convenience. Evenings, weekends, and holidays required coverage. Operators could sometimes trade hours or days off, and some offices arranged relief periods and longer weekends, but permission still ran through the hierarchy. Marriage was not governed by one universal rule across every company and decade, but Bell's own early 1950s writing treated marriage and home duties as expected reasons women would resign. The career was built around the assumption that a young woman might advance, then leave when domestic life claimed her time. Race shaped entry as well. Black women had fought for decades to enter operating rooms. Bell companies began hiring small numbers during and after the Second World War, but integration remained limited and uneven in the 1950s, especially in the South. The polished public image of the telephone girl had been created around white femininity, and many qualified women had been excluded from the opportunity entirely. The final rule was the one connected to the silent line. When an emergency appeared, routine ended, but procedure did not. The work was indoor and respectable, and for many women it offered something factory labor or domestic service often did not. Formal training, a large employer, regular pay, scheduled relief, and a visible ladder upward. An operator could become a service assistant, then an assistant chief or chief operator. Bell's own publications emphasized pay increases, schedule trading, employee activities, and supervisors who helped newcomers adjust to their first job away from home. Some workers found friendship, independence, and pride in belonging to a system the whole community depended upon. But the bargain was strict. The job was seated, yet never restful. One ear remained inside the headset. The eyes scanned lamps. Hands repeated the same reach, plug, key, note, and release. Attention could not wander simply because the calls were routine. The ordinary call and the emergency call arrived through the same small signal. Emotional discipline was constant. The operator absorbed impatience without returning it. She heard family arguments, illness, business pressure, loneliness, and fear, then moved immediately to the next connection. She was trusted with private information while being observed herself, and the prestige was unequal. White women were used as the public symbol of courtesy, while black women were denied access, then admitted in small numbers as the occupation was already being transformed. The job could provide independence, but the system still decided whose voice sounded acceptable and whose future fit the company image. That contradiction sat at the center of the work: enormous responsibility, limited authority. Then one lamp lit, and responsibility became immediate. Return to the operator who heard, "Help me," followed by silence. This was a documented emergency, not an invented heroine's scene. The operator did what training required. She kept the connection open and signaled the service assistant. The assistant came to the position. There was no clear request for police, fire, or medical help. The caller could no longer explain. Hanging up and waiting for another call might have been faster. It also might have erased the only path back to the person in danger. So the operator stayed on the circuit while the assistant used company records to identify the calling subscriber's name and address. Police were sent to investigate. The line remained open. At the address, an officer found a family overcome by coal gas. He reported back that an ambulance was needed immediately. Help arrived, and the family recovered. The switchboard cord had become more than a connection between two telephones. It was the thread holding an unidentified caller to the outside world. The operator had not diagnosed the danger. She had not left her chair. Her skill was recognizing that silence could contain information, preserving the line, and calling the right level of authority without wasting the seconds available. That was the public service hidden inside the ordinary greeting. But if operators could perform judgment that machines could not, why did their numbers begin falling almost as soon as they reached their peak? The occupation did not vanish because one machine suddenly learned the whole job. It disappeared one duty at a time. Automatic local switching let customers dial nearby numbers without asking an operator. Operator distance dialing then allowed long-distance operators to key a destination into automatic equipment instead of building every route through a chain of cord boards and distant voices. In 1951, customers in Englewood, New Jersey became the first in the United States to dial selected long-distance calls directly using an area code and telephone number. The experiment revealed the future. The customer supplied the digits, switching equipment found the path, and automatic accounting helped record the charge. As direct distance dialing spread, the simplest high-volume calls no longer reached an operator. The remaining workforce handled the exceptions: collect calls, person-to-person service, directory assistance, billing questions, emergencies, and calls from equipment that could not dial. This improved speed, privacy, and convenience. It lowered the labor required for each connection. It also transferred part of the operator's work to the customer. People learned area codes, turned the dial themselves, and accepted that a machine, not a familiar voice, would choose the route. The workforce contracted. From about 342,000 operators around mid-century, the number fell below 250,000 by 1960. Electronic switching and computerized operator consoles continued the process in the following decades. The historical irony is that operators helped introduce the systems that replaced them. They were among the first people to use automated long-distance routing, proving that it worked before customers were trusted to use it directly. The profession did not disappear because operators were unskilled. It disappeared because their skill had been studied, divided into steps, and built into the network. Today, surviving cord boards sit in museums and collections with their plugs resting beneath dark lamps. Without the room full of voices, they can look almost simple. They are not. Each cord once represented a decision. Answer this signal, verify this number, choose this route, protect this conversation. Notice when silence meant trouble. Modern networks perform those actions invisibly. You enter digits. Software checks them, selects a path, signals the distant device, and records the connection. The work that once filled an operating room now occurs before the first ring has finished. The next time a call connects in seconds, picture the operator who once had to hold that route together by hand. The lamp is dark. The connection still happens. Did someone in your family work as a telephone operator? Share the rule, phrase, or detail they remembered that never appeared in the official history.